Hello and welcome back to the channel, or perhaps welcome for the first time. And today we are looking at Red Bull, and more specifically Liam Lawson. Now it may be a harsh title, can Liam Lawson survive at Red Bull? But I don't think even the most loyal Lawson fans believe he can compete with Max, because not many can, let's face it. And we also know that second seat at Red Bull has history. So for me, it is about survival, and what does Liam Lawson need to do to retain that seat? That's what we're going to be looking into today. If you're new around here and you like your Formula 1 content, please do subscribe to the channel, smash a like on the video and get involved down below in the comments. Okay, so before we get to 2025 and look ahead, let's look back a few years. Firstly, at Liam Lawson's progression, as well as Red Bull teammate battles, how they compare with Max, as well as Lawson, how he fared against Yuki Tsunoda in 2023 spell and his 2024 spell. So starting with Liam Lawson and his journey, and we're not going to go all the way back and give you his life story, but starting in 2019, that's when he joined the Red Bull Junior team. And in that year, he joined MP Motorsport to race in F3 for that 2019 season. And in all, he had a mixed season, but he was on debut, of course. It led to a 11th place finish in the standings. And yes, in the background, you may also recognize, well, you'll probably recognize a few names, but one in particular in P9. Yes, Yuki Tsunoda in F3 with Liam Lawson in 2019. Yuki finished 9th in that season before progressing to Formula 2. So first season in F3 for Liam Lawson, nothing spectacular, but a solid year, you'd say, for being on debut. The following year in 2020, Lawson would remain in F3, but now racing for the high-tech team alongside some other Red Bull juniors, and a much improved season would see him claim 6 podiums, taking 3 wins and finishing 5th in the standings. As I say, no Yuki that season because he'd gone on to F2, but you will see above him Logan Sargent, Teo Pourchaire, and also Oscar Piastri. Lawson then made the step up himself in F2 in 2021, remaining with the high-tech team. And again, he had a solid season on debut in F2 without again being outstanding. He did achieve 1 win that season and 3 podiums, and he would finish 9th in the standings. So again, pretty similar to that first season in F3 in terms of his performance. Again, you'll see many familiar names ahead of him in that F2 season. Oscar going back-to-back, taking the F2 championship after the F3 championship the year before. Also, Zhou ahead of him, and a few other drivers such as Teo Pourchaire again, Deruvla and Drugovic. Those 3 drivers all failed to get an F1 seat to date. As I said, Yuki was in F2 the year before, so Yuki and Liam only competed together in that first F3 season in 2019. Yuki went on to F2, as I said, in 2020. He finished 3rd in that season, his debut season F2, before he then went on to the AlphaTauri, what was then the AlphaTauri team, in 2021, now Red Bull or Racing Bulls or whatever you want to call them. It's Toro Rosso. It's Toro Rosso at the end of the day. Yuki Tsunoda then jumped into the full Formula 1 team, which he's now been with, of course, the last 4 years. But back to Liam. So on to 2022, Lawson remained in F2 and moved over to the Carling team alongside Logan Sargent. And this would see a similar improvement from how he improved in his second year in F3 on his first year. The same thing kind of occurs here, where he's made a much solid improvement in his second year in F2. He secured 4 wins and 6 podiums to claim 3rd in the championship. As I say, there's a couple of common themes there that you can see, which is the first season, it's not really stand out in terms of joining that formula. The second season, he does make a positive step in terms of improving his performance. And he's done that from his second season F3 compared to his first, and then the exact same thing on his second season F2 compared to his first season in F2. Following that second season in Formula 2 in 2023, he officially joined Formula 1 then as a reserve driver for RB. And due to the unfortunate injury Danny Rick suffered in the Dutch Grand Prix, that wrist injury, Liam Lawson was able to jump into the car in 2023, and he went on to race 5 times in that 23 season. And although Yuki outqualified Lawson 4-1, Lawson had the better of the races, winning the head-to-head 4-1. It's worth noting Yuki didn't start the Italian Grand Prix, and he did have a DNF in Singapore during that spell. Head-to-heads in terms of the race finishes aren't always the be-all and end-all, and we'll get back to that later. Nonetheless, that was a very good showing for jumping in that car mid-season and never having raced in Formula 1, because as we've seen previously, it looks like it takes him a little bit of adjustment. So that was a very good spell when he jumped in for 2023. And finally, we've got last year, the 2024 season, where he was back on the sidelines once Ricciardo had recovered from his injury. And Ricciardo and Yuki, again, were the drivers for RB in 2024. But it became clear as that season gone on that they were looking to push Ricciardo out the door. And I still think that was a really poorly handled goodbye to Ricciardo. Deserved a much better goodbye. But nonetheless, Ricciardo was replaced by Liam Lawson once we got to COTA. And Lawson, where he had 5 races in 2023, competed in the final quarter of 2024, the last 6 rounds. So again, a tough task to have to jump in midway through. And this time, he wasn't as successful compared to Yuki. As we see in the background, Yuki finished 4-2 up in the races head-to-head this time. And Yuki also dominated qualifying 6-0. Now, in summary, what does this tell us? Well, it shows a key theme that we said already, that Lawson appears to improve once he's had that first full year in any given formula. Of course, in Formula 1, he hasn't yet had a full season. He's essentially had 2 quarter seasons. And I think that kind of tells us why Red Bull have selected him over Yuki, because although that raw data of qualifying and race results in terms of head-to-heads may look like Yuki's the clear choice, when you factor in and look at the actual race pace and their average race pace, they were very evenly matched. And I think that's what's gone against Yuki, as Yuki's been in that team for 4 years now. And to get that Red Bull seat, he would have had to actually really dominate Lawson, have a clear pace advantage during that last quarter of the season and in the post-Red Bull test, which hasn't been the case. The other concern would be that whilst, yes, 2021 was his debut season, he was up against a more experienced driver in Gasly. In both 2021 and 2022, he was second best to Pierre, a driver himself who couldn't cope with the Red Bull seat. I think the final element is Yuki's temperament. Now, for me, I've not got a problem with it at all. I love drivers with emotion, and Yuki's got that in abundance, but perhaps Red Bull feel he wouldn't cope with the pressures of the main team. Red Bull and Horner, they feel that Lawson has got more potential, he's got a higher ceiling to develop, and they've obviously looked at Yuki over the last 4 years and don't feel it's the right call. That said, going through that data today, it does show that Lawson gets better once he's had a year in the sport. So Red Bull could have provided Yuki perhaps a 1-year deal at Red Bull and Liam that RB seat and reviewed it at the end of the season. Yuki served his time at Red Bull, and perhaps he deserved at least a shot to showcase whether he has the ability to do it in the Red Bull team, especially when the past has shown throwing Red Bull juniors with a lack of experience in Pierre Gasly and Albon into that team hasn't worked. But essentially, it's not the decision Red Bull made, and it will be Liam Lawson who takes that seat in 2025. Let me know in the comments who you think deserved that seat. Should Yuki be in it, or are you happy with Liam Lawson? And let me know why. But the big question is, and this took a little while to get there, can Lawson survive at Red Bull? Well, history does tell us it's going to be a very difficult task. Apart from Daniel Ricciardo, who did challenge Max, but that was when Max was essentially still a rookie. Since then, Max has demolished every teammate. Albon and Gasly, their drives coming to a premature end. And whilst Checo did a good job for the team initially, he never challenged Max, and his form fell off so much in the last season or so. He just purely wasn't performing well enough to even achieve a Constructors' title for Red Bull. But there is a key thing there. Challenging Max and retaining a Red Bull seat are 2 different things in my opinion. And I don't think Red Bull want a driver that can challenge Max, and they may not even be able to find a driver that can challenge Max, but they probably don't want it because, as we've seen in history, that can cause big issues for the team, such as, Lewis and Nico Rosberg in the past. And to a lesser degree, we kind of saw it last year with Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris. For me, I think Red Bull want a consistent driver that's going to get into Q3, he's going to score regular points without wrecking the car, and that's why they've gone with Liam Lawson. He's shown year on year he can improve, he's a consistent performer without maybe being the star of the show. And I do think, in my opinion, Lawson will survive in that Red Bull seat in 2025. I think he will be quite a bit off Max's pace, but I think he'll do what Red Bull require. Consistent performance and regular points, and he'll secure that seat into 2026. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments. Will Lawson survive this 2025 season and retain his Red Bull seat? And if you've made it all the way to the end of the video, please do me a massive favour and press that like button, and we shall see you in the next one.